Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Woolfolk. I'm the Director of Programming and Marketing at the Kansas City Public Library. And I want to thank you for joining us for this latest installment in our still virtual series of signature events. Tonight's event is an especially important one for the library. Libraries, as you know, have been on the front lines of the fight for child literacy for a long time. And while we've had a lot of allies in that fight, it feels good to know that we have someone like Dr. Tracy Swinton Bailey fighting at our side. She joins us tonight for a discussion of her new book, Forever Free, a true story of hope in the fight for child literacy. In it, she charts the journey of Freedom Readers, a nonprofit organization she founded in 2009 while a student in the doctoral program at the University of South Carolina. She outlines clearly and persuasively how Freedom Readers' one-to-one tutoring model has worked in the rural South and how it can work across the United States. The book is available from most major retailers, but we like to direct people to bookshop.org, where your purchase helps support independent bookstores across the country. If at any point tonight you have questions, please drop those in the chat on the YouTube page, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. But now, Dr. Bailey, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So I'd like to begin my comments by sharing a little bit from the book itself, Forever Free. I'll tell you that the title of the book comes from a Frederick Douglass quote. He says, "Once you learn to read, you will be forever free." And so this passage, this 1.5 pages that I'm going to share with you, really references Douglass's life and his struggle. I write a lot about what I learned from his example after having read his autobiography and many biographies written about him. What Douglass held in such high esteem is an area of crisis for our country today, where about 43 million adults are functionally illiterate and 2/3 of fourth graders read below grade level. The National Center for Education Statistics reports that on high school graduation day, 2/3 of the students who walk across the stage continue to read below grade level. Literacy still matters today as much as, or even more than it did in Douglass's lifetime. Reading is by all means still a tool of liberation for people of color. It significantly impacts healthcare, employment, poverty, and crime. Low reading rates lead to disparities in all of these areas, as the global pandemic exposed. For decades, taxpayers have been picking up the cost of this country's failure to make good on its debt to children of color. When a patient is unable to read and understand the instructions provided by his doctor or with his medications, he is less likely to follow orders, which leads to lower rates of recovery. According to a report called Low Health Literacy, Implications for National Health Policy, every year we spend as much as $238 billion in healthcare costs as a direct result of low literacy. When it comes to prisons, the economic impact of low literacy is even more alarming. Researchers at the Vera Institute for Justice found that in 2015, the average amount spent on each inmate in South Carolina was $20,053. In contrast, the state spent an average of $10,249 per year to educate a child in 2016. In truth, our country will either pay to adequately educate its children when they are young, or pay for lower productivity levels in the labor force and higher incarceration rates when they are older. 75% of all prison inmates struggle with literacy or did not finish high school, according to the Department of Justice. As the saying goes, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. The work of building strong children is not easy and has been undervalued for decades. Historically, there has been a lack of political will to address the less than adequate education of children of color, resulting in underfunded schools, staffed by underpaid teachers, stuck in a cycle of underperformance. When I was first confronted with these statistics, I realized that something different had to happen, something unconventional. Someone was going to have to step up and challenge the status quo. I didn't want it to be me. Despite the lifelong training of my mentors, I resisted the idea of raising my voice. So let me make this point clear. This is not a story of my heroism, not by any stretch of the imagination. This is a story of putting one foot in front of the other and showing up day after day. This is a story about hundreds of people, rich, poor, Black, white, immigrants, educated, powerless, ordinary, who have joined the fight to make above grade level reading skills accessible to every child in America. And so that's just a little excerpt from the book. I want to share with you now some of the picture books that we use in our Freedom Readers program to help spark the imagination of the young people. We call them scholars when they work with us at our sites. The first book I want to share with you is this one, R.E.S.P.E.C.T., Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, by Carol Boston Weatherford. I'm super excited about this book because there is a major motion picture in theaters right now about the life of Aretha Franklin. And what we try to do is choose books that will help our scholars connect to what's going on around them culturally and currently. A few years ago, we looked at the movie and the book Hidden Figures, and that gave us all an opportunity to really delve deeply into the lives of those people that were being profiled in that particular book. Second book I'd like to share with you is called Silway by Lupita Nyong'o. And I love this book because its main character has, she's such a positive little girl. And she goes through an issue of trying to understand her own identity. I write about that in my book as well because it is a memoir and a call to action. So what I try to do is include a lot of the stories that help me become who I am today and help shape the Freedom Readers program as well. Another thing I want to say about this book is that it was read to me by Lupita Nyong'o when I went to Netflix and found a series called Bookmark, where you can find lots of authors just reading their children's books out loud. And it really got me excited about this particular book. The third book I want to share with you is called Hair Love, and it's by Matthew A. Cherry. And the pictures are by Vashti Harrison, who happened to be the illustrator of the last book that I showed you. This book really chronicles the relationship between a little girl and her father as he learns how to do her hair. And so it's just really important for us to share the images that we want young people to see that they may not have seen in other instances. There are all kinds of stereotypes out there, but books like these can really combat those and help all kids understand better what it means to be an African American. Since hair is something that's so important, we also love to share this book. It's called I Love My Hair. It's another one that gives us an opportunity to really help the scholars in our program feel pride in who they are. We all have different ways that we show up and identify in the world, but we talk a lot about how we see ourselves and how we are seen. So this is another book that I recommend. I Love My Hair. Finally, I'd like to share with you this book. It's one of my favorites lately. It's called Bunheads by Misty Copeland. And she writes a story that follows a ballerina. And as I listened to her read this story to me, I discovered a lot of words that are, I guess, very familiar in the ballerina lifestyle that I probably didn't know how to pronounce and just had not encountered before. And so that's something that we do at Freedom Readers on a regular basis. We have theme songs where we start each meeting, and the song will be played while the young people read the words either on a screen or on the page. I decided to go that route because it reminded me of how when I was a little girl and I'd attend church, the choir would be singing a song and I would follow along in my hymnal. And lots of times I would see on the page for the very first time words that they were singing, and I could add that to my reading vocabulary. And so I wanted that also to be an experience that the young people at the Freedom Readers program could have. In schools, we call that choral reading, but it's just another example of how literacy can be reinforced and how it grows in our communities. So I've told you about the books we've shared. I've told you why I think our program is important. Let me just end my comments by telling you what Freedom Readers is. We're an after-school and summer literacy program. We meet weekly for 90 minutes, and we connect young people who are in need of maybe some reading support, falling in love with reading, but young people who live in low-income communities. We connect them with tutors, and those people can be volunteers from all around our area. Sometimes they can be clergy members, sometimes they're students, sometimes they're lawyers, sometimes they're doctors. But for 90 minutes, we come together and cross all kinds of lines in our communities just to elevate and support these young people. As I said earlier, the 90 minutes might start with our theme song, and then we might get into some reading about our particular theme. This summer, our theme was, how does your garden grow? So we read a lot of books about agriculture, and we introduced the young people to new words. And we even gave them the opportunity to work in a garden, to plant things, to weed things. We talked about the parallels between cultivating a garden and cultivating a scholar's mindset. So we talked about removing those things that might distract us from reading and from growing in our learning and just becoming even more brilliant. After we spend that time with the theme, then we give the kids a healthy snack, and then we ask the scholar and the tutor to read together for 45 minutes. The scholar might read something to the tutor that he or she is comfortable reading, something that they might have read at school already. And then the tutor might read to the scholar something that might be just a little bit above their reading level, but something that reflects their interest. So after they've done both of those things and they've recorded their reading on a list, then they get ready to make a presentation. We ask all of our scholars who might be kindergarten to fifth grade to follow our template or our outline and give a speech to the people in the room. We talk to them first and foremost about the criteria for effective public communication, like making eye contact and speaking with enthusiasm, and they practice those things. You might see a 5-year-old at one of our Freedom Readers meetings stand up in front of 40 people and talk about a book that they've read or talk about something that they love. In the very beginning of a session that might last, 8 meetings, a lot of kids are kind of nervous and shy. But by the time we get to the 8th or the 9th meeting, we have to make a list of who can go first, because just about all of the young scholars want to be that person that gets to speak first. It's the encouragement that the tutor gives them. It's the confidence that is built in their time together that really makes my heart smile. I think it's something extremely special. As each one of the young people is leaving our meetings, they stop by our take-home table and they get to select a brand new picture book or a chapter book, like the ones that I'm showing you this evening. And they take these books home for their home libraries. And we encourage them and their family members, their caregivers, their parents to read every day for at least about 20 minutes so that they can build those habits that they need to become better readers and lifelong learners. And so that's what our Freedom Readers program looks like. We're excited about having done it for 11 years now. COVID has caused us to pivot, and we also have an online option. We're very much looking forward to the day when we can get back to operating in the 20 sites that we had operational at the beginning of 2020. But in the meantime, we hope that you'll take the opportunity to read about our journey in Forever Free and find out more about how we're trying to help everybody Just read more and celebrate books. So Steve, that's the end of what I'd like to present this evening. And if there are any questions, I'd love to answer those.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. I want to start actually here. When I was reading about the founding of Freedom Readers, I came across a line from you that I thought was really interesting. Let me find it here. You said that you wanted to, instead of focusing on the shortcoming of our youth, attempt to unite the community around children's strengths.
Yes.
Can you talk about kind of the origin of why that mission was top of mind when you started this?
Yes, Steve, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking it. I've spent a lot of time in schools, and I know that either as a result of our standardized testing push or as a result of some really long-held beliefs about how children learn, teachers have spent a lot of time looking at what kids don't do well and trying to remediate those areas. But I've found that if we can identify where kids are doing a great job, then we can take that focus and expand on what they're doing well. I believe that every child needs to experience at least one success every day. And so when you focus on deficits, on what we feel like they don't have, that doesn't really leave a lot of room for every child to be celebrated, for them to feel as if they have something of value to bring to the table. So that's why we try to create an atmosphere at Freedom Readers that focuses on strengths and gives everybody an opportunity to move from point A to point B.
And what does that look like when it's put into practice, when we talk about focusing on strengths? How does that translate to what the tutors are actually doing in those sessions?
Mm-hmm. So when tutors and scholars spend that 45 minutes together once a week, because we use a one-to-one model, the tutor really begins to understand very deeply how that child learns and what that child is interested in and what that child can do. So the tutor has the opportunity to really craft a time together and make it very personalized, so that if a child is a great public speaker and they have a conversation with the child and they learn that the child wants to be a better public speaker, then the tutor can bring in more resources about public speaking and spend more time working on those criteria that we've outlined for being a great public speaker. There are lots of ways that kids show us that they are strong. For instance, they might be great at choosing just the right book for themselves because they know how to look at the cover and they know how to flip through the first few pages. They might be great public speakers, or they might be great at comprehension, or they might be great at asking just the right question. But for everyone that participates in our program, we try to isolate at least one thing that is a strength for them. And then we ask them if they'd like to set a goal for each one of our sessions, and we help them move toward that goal.
That transitions nicely into an audience question here. Somebody wants to know about outcomes. After 11 years, have you been able to measure some outcomes that might prove useful?
Yes, absolutely. We've been able to measure some outcomes. We, in the last few years, have put together what we call our assessment team. And right now it consists of some college professors and some college students and some retired teachers who actually administer a tool so that we find out where our scholars are reading in terms of grade level. And so we give that assessment at the beginning of a session, and we might give it again, let's say 2 or 3 months later. And we've seen quite a bit of growth in just about, we've seen quite a bit of growth in all of our scholars. One of our goals is to make sure that all of the scholars increase that score by at least 10% when we give the test again.
It sounds almost like the program is something of a Boys and Girls Club meets literacy program. Would that be an accurate way to describe it, or is that too simple?
I do not think that's too simple. I do think that that is a great way to describe it. I also do some work with a Boys and Girls Club in our area, and it does create that safe space for young people to be with someone who really believes in building them up towards their full potential. So I would absolutely agree with that assessment. It is a Boys and Girls Club meets, literacy piece. Yes. I'm sorry, Steve, I lost your sound there for a second.
I'm sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Sorry about that. It sounds a little bit like this is an educational program that goes beyond, or could go just beyond just reading. When you talk about identifying these strengths, you could be pointing kids down a road to future success in public speaking or mathematics or physics or whatever you identify those strengths to be. I'm curious what steps, if any, are currently taken to help the students take those next steps towards their passion beyond the reading component.
So we do set up these themes for each one of our sessions. And so our theme might be around science, it might be around math, it might be around the habits and skills you need to have in order to be a great scholar. And so what we try to do is take reading, not just for its own sake, but for the opportunity that it gives us to advance in any of those particular areas. I agree with you when you say that we could help kids advance in any of those areas, but I think that we will continue to focus on the literacy piece because we believe that that's a strong, once a child has a strong foundation in literacy, then they have the freedom to make the choice to go in a lot of different directions. But so many young people are not being, that fire is just not being sparked in them so that they love to read and it's something that they gravitate toward. It's too many of our young people see it as a chore or just something that they're doing in terms of decoding words on a page. And I really want to see them use it as a tool to further their curiosity and just learn more about all kinds of things.
So I have a confession to make. My son was never a reader, and I was never a graphic novel person. But my son became enamored with the graphic novel series, and he would just devour those. And I kind of changed my position and thought, hey, if he's reading, he's reading.
Yes.
And if he wants to read those same 12 books over and over and over again, I'll let him for now. Do you all make any distinction in terms of the quality of the materials that the kids want to read, or do you subscribe to that idea that anything that they want to read, if it's words, it's good for them?
I put a check mark next to the latter. We are just excited whenever a child gets excited about a book. And so we will bring in magazines and we will bring in graphic novels. And if we have a fifth grader that just wants to sit with children's books and read those, then we open the door for that as well. We subscribe to the belief that if a child is given the opportunity to choose what it is that he can spend his time reading, then he will spend more time reading. And we also know that the more time we spend doing anything, the better we get at that particular thing. We believe in practice. And so, we're super excited about wherever a child is in their reading journey. And in the book, I write about how I started out reading. I got excited about V.C. Andrews when I was in elementary school and read the entire series. And in college, of course, I'm reading Shakespeare and writing papers on that, and in high school. And so I think that once we get that flame ignited, then we should really cultivate that and help kids to grow until they move on to something else that we might believe is of a higher quality.
I wonder for people that are thinking about this and thinking, boy, something like that could work here, wherever here may be. What advice would you have to people that would maybe want to start a program similar to this in their own community?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. First of all, if you read my book, you'll see what our model was, and then you can maybe learn from a few of our mistakes. You can visit our website and find some resources there. But I'd also say that if you're really serious about doing something like this, just understand that it's going to take a lot of tenacity, and you're going to have to be relentless, and you're going to have to be willing to persevere, because you'll run into a lot of obstacles and brick walls. and you'll feel it like you're not making any progress at all. But I feel like if we reach one kid who may not have wanted to pick up a book before, or who was terribly afraid of speaking in front of a group, and now they can make eye contact with people when they're communicating. If one kid has their life changed in a positive way, then all of that is worth it.
Can you tell us, how was the start of the program for you? Was it a success out of the gate, either in terms of participation or just success with the program itself? Or did you face some bumps in the road?
Oh, I faced a lot of bumps in the road. I would not say that it was an immediate success. We started in a public housing community at the community center. We were invited to come in there, and then we went door to door and kind of created flyers and let people know what it was that we were doing. A lot of people said to me in the beginning, these kids will not necessarily take you seriously when you get there. Once they realize that you have a program that is structured, they probably won't come back. But we did have a pretty good response from those young people and those families that came out in the beginning. There were some people who signed on to be tutors that decided that that wasn't the thing for them. Sometimes we would show up to the building where we were going to meet with the kids, and the door would be locked and we wouldn't have a key, and nobody would show up to let us in for 10 to 15 minutes, and the kids are running all around. So I would not say that it was an initial success, but I will say that as we continued to show up, no matter what, as we made commitments to families and followed through on those commitments, then we absolutely saw that there was a lot of progress, and people's minds were changed. I can tell you about one time we were walking through the community and we approached a mom of one of the kids that was participating in our program in the first year. And she recognized who we were, and she stopped and said, "No, I'm sorry, we have enough books. We don't need enough books," which was a little bit, it took me aback a little bit, because I'm thinking, when do you ever have enough books? Like, I'm not sure that I ever get to a point where I feel like I had enough books. But then I realized that she was working 2 jobs. She was tired. She had 3 boys at home. And then maybe about, I'd say about 4 or 5 weeks later, we saw the report card of one of those young men that was working in our program, and he had really made lots of gains. And she came to thank us for our work with him and celebrated the fact that we were persistent and continued to stay there. So that's why I give that piece of advice. Just be committed to showing up, and be committed to being genuine with families and with young people, because when you're not, they'll pick up on it immediately.
So I wanted to ask an audience question here. So somebody asked, how widespread are programs like Freedom Readers? Are you detecting interest around the country?
I am detecting some interest around the country. We currently are not, we are operating in 3 counties in the state where I am in South Carolina. So we haven't really expanded that far and that wide. But I'm really excited about the fact that now that the book is available, that people can find out about the work that we're doing, and people can just understand that the work of literacy and the work of standing next to young people as they go on their literacy journey is not just the work of our schools. And it's something that can happen in libraries and in churches and community centers. It really needs to be something that we take back to our communities and understand that it's a responsibility of all of us. And actually, I find it to be lots of fun. My tutors tell me that it's the highlight of their week to be able to turn off their cell phone and sit next to a kid and just really focus on what that child is doing. And seeing the progress week to week is something that really is very affirming and very rewarding. So we are seeing interest, and we're excited about having the opportunity to work with more people to do more of this work across the country.
One of the things I think that sets your program apart from what I've read is the training that your tutors go through. Can you talk a little bit about the steps that you all take to prepare your tutors to make sure that they're going to be doing everything they can to work in the best interest of the kids?
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, we had lots of days where we would get together and meet for 2 or 3 hours with potential tutors so that they understood our program, understood our philosophy, had the opportunity to become more acquainted with some of the picture books that are out there, because you can't really help connect a child to a book that might be the just right book for them if you don't have somewhat of a broad knowledge of what's available for them out there. So the training has been conducted by university professors. It really gives the tutors an opportunity to get to know one another and to get to know our program and to understand all of the parameters that we've put around the work together to keep everybody safe. We've since moved that training online. So once someone fills out an application, we send them to our online site where they can go through several modules that help them to become better equipped to be a tutor in our program. So training is something that's extremely important to us because we think that the better prepared the adults are, then the more the young people will get out of their time with us.
That's great. Beyond that, the initial challenge of breaking through, getting through to a child who doesn't think that they like reading, and convincing them that they do. Once you get past that, what is the biggest challenge you face in taking a next step in child literacy?
Let's see. Once we break past that, I think it's important and sometimes very challenging to help kids to establish the kind of habits that they're going to need to continue to grow their reading skills and to grow their understanding of what's out there for them. That's why I talked earlier about that 20 minutes set aside for reading every day. Sometimes I say to families, I just want you to read on days that you eat. And everybody is pretty much going to eat every day, I think. And if not, we make sure that there's something there provided for every family if we know that there's a need. But we kind of want to make sure that the books are available for them and that they utilize those books on a regular basis so that those, we say that the brain is like a muscle. And when we continue to grow it and we continue to build it, we continue to go back to those books, then those habits are things that will take us all the way through our lives.
Just a quick reminder for everybody, the book is Forever Free, A True Story of Hope in the Fight for Child Literacy. It's available everywhere, but we'd like to get people to bookshop.org. Your purchase there supports independent booksellers. It's a great outlet, a great cause. Dr. Bailey, I want to finish here with a couple of questions.
Okay.
First, I want to ask, you are a nonprofit.
Yes.
If people are interested in donating, where's the website? What do they do if they want to learn more beyond reading the book?
Yeah, they can visit our website, which is freedomreaders.org. There's some resources on the website that are mentioned in the books, things like the reading record that we use to write down all of the books that our kids are reading and looking at whether or not they're gravitating toward a particular author so that we can find more books by that author, or we're looking at whether or not they're reading a series or if there's something that we can recommend for them that we feel that they might like. They can also find there our interest inventory, which is the tool that we use to find out more about what kids are really gravitating toward at that time in their lives. But the website is a really great resource and a really wonderful place where you can make a donation, which we'll use to purchase more of these books to give away to kids and flood all homes with these books so we don't have any more book deserts.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you what role public libraries play in this fight in ally with your organization.
Absolutely. Well, we love public libraries, and we actually do a library card drive at Freedom Readers, where we have applications for library cards and we give them out to parents. And we even have incentives where, you know, if you fill that out and you get your library card and you actually use it, then you could get some type of a prize from us. We routinely connect with our local libraries and have the bookmobiles come and set up right outside of the door so that kids can go inside and browse and check out books from the bookmobile as well. So we strongly believe in and support our libraries because we work with families that are in low-income communities. You don't have to spend a lot of money to have lots of books in your home and spend time just getting to know more characters and more stories and more books that give you more information. So we're definitely an ally in the fight.
I want to close with this. Can you tell us your single biggest success story? The story of a child maybe that accomplished more than you ever thought that they could, or they ever thought that they could?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about a little girl who came to work with us in the very early days of our program when we were working exclusively in public housing communities. And we would meet in the community center. Her mom was an avid reader who had told me that she spent time traveling with her family when she was younger. And she lived in Germany for a while because her dad was in the military. And she said, I couldn't just sit there and watch TV because I couldn't understand what they were saying. So that's when I started to fall in love with books. So she made sure that her 3 daughters were a part of our program, but not all of them were super excited about being there in the very beginning. But she was adamant about being there, and she would stay with them and make sure that they were engaged. And we got this young girl just the right tutor that really helped her connect with the right books. She was still a little reluctant throughout, and she didn't necessarily show up as very enthusiastic when it came to reading, but she loved the speaking part of the program. We kept track of her, and just 2 or 3 years ago, we found out that she had been invited to participate in our school district's early college program, where she could go to this particular school and get some college credit before she even graduated from high school. We invited her back to our yearly meeting, and she made a speech and said that just being a part of our program helped her to understand how important reading was, and it kind of sparked that desire for her and helped her to be an independent reader on her own. So just hearing that story made our hearts smile, and that was just really a great moment for us to be able to have her come back and talk about what an impression we made on her when she was younger.
I love that. The book, again, is Forever Free, A True Story of Hope in the Fight for Child Literacy. Wonderful book, wonderful program. Please check it out. Available everywhere, available through your public library. Dr. Bailey, thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a lot of fun.
Good night, everybody.